Quite some time ago now, I brought to you a game called World of Castles. I've done a couple of videos on it already and people wanted to see more of the development of it. Some new development diaries have been released, so I'm going to be bringing you today a quickfire update on everything we know about the World of Castles, new information that has been released. Of course, this is a game that isn't out yet, it's going to come into early access sometime in the near future, but this is a channel where I love to try and shout out these new indie games that are coming out, and especially in the historical genre. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Now, the engine for World of Castles has really been customized and I think they're doing a great job on it. It makes sure that you can only construct buildings that you could build in the real world, nothing too unrealistic. Each block has its own weight, vertical load capacity and a general load capacity there as well. This means that you can't go over these statistics or the structure will collapse and it will not be able to withstand its load. Building looks quite smooth in terms of placing blocks and putting them together. It looks very easy as well, but with a vast amount of options and details that you can choose between to make a customized building or castle to your choice. If you want to see more about the building stuff and of course the invasion of castles and stuff, go and check out my previous videos in the past. Pressing F lets you see how stable your structure is while you're building it. If the blocks are green, this means that the block is faring pretty well. But the more red it gets and the gradient it gets from green to orange and then to red, this means that the block is under more stress. If the block comes under too much stress for it to handle, it will fall down. Equipment, although, does not affect the load capacity on blocks, so you don't really need to worry about that. It's more about the building blocks that you put on top of each other. But let's talk a little bit about destruction, because we all love a bit of destruction. Here we have a video of a trebuchet firing on a column wall. First, we can see it shooting at a flag, and this should seem like a small detail, but these small details really define a game for me, and it really makes it stand out as a little bit more effort that's been put in from the developers and not just a chucked out game. As you can see, when the trebuchet rock hits the flag, it sways and reacts on impact. I think this is beautiful, and it just shows the sheer amount of detail and effort the developers are putting into this game to make it as realistic and immersive for the player experience. Of course, if your stone hits the ground, it will put up a bit of a splash on the rock. We don't know if there's going to be much terrain deformation at the moment, but we'll be able to see that later on down the path. But of course, if your projectile hits the rock, it's going to slow it down. It's going to do less damage to anything it hits later on after that. But let's go on to more of shooting at structures. Here we have a video of a trebuchet firing its rock at a structure that is in the middle of a field. Wherever you hit on a structure, parts will fall off. Hitting the outer edge of a block will of course do more damage to a wall than a stronger, sturdy center, because this means that if you're hitting the side of something, it's not going to be able to withstand as much of an impact if you're hitting the very center of it where it is at its strongest. But of course, each hit will lower the load capacity, I mentioned it before. Therefore, after a certain amount of hits in the right place, the load will be too much for a block to withstand and it will fall, causing the blocks above it as well to fall. So of course, if you're aiming at the edge where it takes more parts off, it is also though going to be kind of compromising, since it might take a little bit longer for the thing to fall. And you may think, if it's taking more bits of rock off, why would it take longer to fall? This is because the edge is probably the weakest part. The center is the strong part that holds up the majority of the weight from the block, so you're going to have to pick and choose where you fire at depending on how much ammo you have, etc, etc. I think the destruction animation works very well. It's got great detail on it, and bigger and smaller pieces fall off when things fall down. But of course, not necessarily the whole of a structure may fall. Only the parts that cannot withstand the load on top for any longer. For example, we can see stuff for shooting at a wall. If you aim at the top, only the top bits will crumble. That means that the whole center and the bits around it are still standing strong, so you're still going to have to do just as much damage to that. And of course, if you have a bit of a bridge as well, only the side that's taken too much of an impact and that can't withstand the load capacity is going to fall. The rest of it will be completely stable. But what do you guys think about the progress of this game? I know this is just a quickfire update, and if you want more details on it, go and check my first and second videos on it, and I'm trying to bring you as much information as possible for these newer early access games and try and promote them for the the developers. Once again, none of these are sponsored, none of the developers even ask me to. I just love doing this because these are some great games that deserve to be spotlighted because not many people see them and sometimes they can get passed by. But other than that, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. But until then, I will see you in the next one.